Poison Ivy. Poison Ivy, also known as Pamela Isley, wields a formidable and unique level of power that sets her apart as one of Batman's most powerful villains. Gifted with a deep connection to plant life, Ivy's powers encompass both botanical manipulation and a heightened affinity for nature. She can communicate with plants, control their growth, and command them to bend to her will, utilizing them as powerful weapons or protective barriers, and she can do this on a global scale. Her toxic touch, stemming from her ability to secrete potent pheromones, makes her a dangerous foe in close combat, assuming combatants can even get that close. Her expertise in biochemistry allows her to concoct various deadly toxins and antidotes, making her a master of botanical chemistry, and she can pretty much heal herself at will. What truly makes Poison Ivy fearsome is her ability to bend the very ecosystems to her command, unleashing nature's wrath upon her enemies. Now this isn't as impressive as her other feats of power, but she is also quite good at seducing her enemies, bending them to her will, which she has even done to the Man of Steel. Usually this is done with toxins, but sometimes just through straight up charm. With her compelling blend of power, allure, and eco-conscious motivations, Poison Ivy has been an incredibly popular villain who few can really stand against. Number 9. Larfleeze. Larfleeze, or Agent Orange, is one unique character in the emotional spectrum, and that's because he's the sole wielder of the Orange Light of Avarice. He is the only member of the Orange Lantern Corps. Larfleeze is driven by an insatiable greed that grants him dominion over all that he desires, driving him into conflict with whoever possesses what it is that he does desire, and over the power of the Orange Lanterns, which represent greed. His power is centered on his ability to conjure constructs using the stolen identities and forms of those he has absorbed into his horde, making him basically an army unto himself. This ability extends even to abstract concepts and beings, showcasing the extent of his control. The big thing about Larfleeze is that since he spent so much time with his Orange Lantern and ring, he has basically become the living Orange Lantern himself. This energy grants him huge levels of power. His constructs are virtually indestructible and can overwhelm even the most powerful opponents. However, Larfleeze's power comes at the cost of his individuality, as his insatiable greed makes him less of a person and more of a living embodiment of greed itself. Even without the power of the Orange Lantern, his race is already basically immortal, with Larfleeze himself being billions of years old, and with enough power that I seriously doubt he will be going down anytime soon.
Number 8. The Maestro. Payne Cardine was once a musician who ended up turning to crime after he received some pretty bad reviews on his performances. Now, as somewhat of a musician myself, I can understand why that would make you upset, but like, come on, that seems just a little bit extreme. Using music as his main motif, Cardine adopted the costumed identity of the Maestro, a criminal who left clues in the form of music for his next crimes. In 1962, Justice League of America number 16, we see him using a music gang equipped with musical instruments that compel those in earshot to dance. The Maestro tried to defeat the Justice League by encasing them in indestructible bubbles. Cardine was eventually captured by Batman and Robin, who were assisted by a professional in musicology, and he was sent to prison, and his musical crime spree was stopped for good. Why not check out this musical madman for yourself, starting with his first appearance in 1962's Batman number 149. Number 7. Weapons Master. A criminal from the 120th century, Zotar the Weapons Master is a highly intelligent supervillain who is an expert in all weapons from the future and an enemy to the Justice League. He went back in time with a cache of weapons to battle the League, believing that the one to defeat them would be invincible and able to batter the Intersolar Police, due to a book written by Wonder Woman herself which seemed to indicate that he was the one who defeated the League. Obviously he was defeated and was sent back to his time period, where he went back to the drawing board and tried to figure out a weapon that would actually defeat them. Since then, he has returned to plague other incarnations of the League on several occasions, like when he tried to obtain Green Lantern's power ring, or when he was the leader of a cult that worshipped the League, although he has been defeated each time. Check him out for yourself, starting with 1980's The Brave and the Bold, number 29. Number 6. Saturna. Known as the Lord of Misrule, Saturna was an intergalactic warlord who took control of countless worlds, with few being able to oppose him. He had conquered many planets, including Moss Steel, and was nearing victory on Terra Arcana. However, he didn't realize that the two of his top lieutenants, Simon Magus and Tazala, were stealing and dealing behind his back, selling off conquered planets to a human property development firm. Needless to say, he was not too happy about that one bit. I'll admit that Saturna was a bit of a showman settlement and spent more time honing his public image than actually focusing on subduing his conquests. He was defeated and killed by the Creature Commandos, who was eventually killed by T'Zala when he was no longer of use to her. Give his story a read for yourself, starting with his first appearance in 1961's Justice League of America #2, all the way until his death in 2000's Creature Commandos #8. Number 5. Amos Fortune. A persistent villain to say the least, this Justice League baddie used several luck-based ploys like the Royal Flush Gang, the Luck League, and the Tarot Gang to get ahead. As a kid, Amos was the leader of a gang of juvenile delinquents, and then as an adult he became obsessed with luck, both good and bad, and discovered the existence of luck glands that dictate how a person's luck will run. After learning how to control these luck glands to manipulate his luck, he gathered his old gang and created the original Royal Flush Gang, who battled the Justice League on multiple occasions. Fortune first met the Justice League while trying to remove their good luck, but he was quickly defeated. He later set up the Royal Flush Gang once again, making major profits by working with Roulette and her gambling operations. After the Justice League foiled his operation, Fortune managed to get away pretty easily as he escaped to a riverboat on the Mississippi, where he was then shot at close range by a widow of a discarded card, the Two of Clubs. Check out his story starting with 1961's Justice League of America #6. Number 4. Epoch, Lord of Time. A powerful being from the year 3786, Epoch the Lord of Time goes head to head with the Justice League of America using his Chrono Cube to peel back the 4th dimensional veil of time. Since his initial defeat by the JLA, this fugitive from the future learned how to move laterally and diagonally through history, accessing armies and weapons spanning across millions of years. His greatest desire was to conquer space and time, and to make sure his bid to rule all reality was successful, he sought out to eliminate the Justice League's ancestors, erasing them completely from existence, which he was more than capable of doing. At some point, the Lord of Time created a frozen moment in history called Time Point, and he eventually evolved into the being known as Epoch, who wanted to master the time stream, changing events to grant him power. Epoch seemingly died in the JLA Wildcats crossover, however he did return once again as the Lord of Time in the Brave and the Bold series. Give his story a read starting with 1962's Justice League of America #10. Number 3. The Key. No one knows the real name of this villain, but we do know that he was originally a chemist with Intergang, obsessed with unlocking the secrets of the physical world and the human mind. To this end, he has augmented himself with chemical cocktails, boosting his baseline cognitive abilities into the superhuman range. A common opponent of the members of the Justice League of America, the Key will never be satisfied until he has picked the contents of their minds apart and cleared a path to total global domination. Although all his attempts to take down the JLA failed, that never stopped him from trying. At one point, he manages to infiltrate the JLA's headquarters and traps the team in a fantasy realm of their own creation, intending to siphon off all of the energies of their inevitable victory in order to increase his power. He almost succeeds if it were not for the intervention of Connor Hawke, who beams up to the JLA headquarters while the Key is present due to a pre-arranged meeting to discuss him becoming a member of the League. He eventually returns to fight the Batman, attempting to provoke the Dark Knight into murdering him so he could escape life itself, but the plan proves unsuccessful. There's a whole lot more to this character, so why not check him out for yourself, starting with 1965 Justice League of America #41. Number 2. The Unimaginable. A being of immeasurable power that roamed the universe wielding its might for its own amusement. Bored with its existence, the Unimaginable left its native planet and traveled through space, exploring several other worlds and gathering various life forms along the way. Arriving on Earth, it saw the JLA in action and decided that it wanted to join the team. However, the Justice League refused the Unimaginable's demands, and the Unimaginable attacked, first with several of the alien creatures that had gathered, then in the body of one of them. The JLA defeated the Unimaginable both times and imprisoned it. Years later, the Unimaginable returned in outer space, battling the Green Lantern named Aaliyah, whom it had previously encountered and just wanted some revenge on. The Daxamite hero Valor saved Aaliyah and seemingly disintegrated the Unimaginable with a burst of laser vision. That was in the end though, because after being captured by LexCorp, it was contained in a chamber called Lockdown 6. The Unimaginable's capsule attracted the attention of Darkseid and the Akarans, the former wanting its power while the latter saw the dangers of it. The Unimaginable was freed from its prison, and its host Dr. Bendorian sought to transfer its energy to a new host, in which it was to be Maximum, who had been engineered by LexCorp to serve such a purpose. The Unimaginable succeeded, and Maximum inherited the power of a god. Have I caught your interest? Good. Check out this powerful energy being for yourself in 1966's Justice League of America #42. Number 1. Shaggy Man. Created by Professor Andrew Zargarian, the Shaggy Man is a synthetic being that proved time and time again that it was pretty much unstoppable, as it was capable of regenerating its destroyed body parts and was also just ridiculously strong. To defeat the virtually immortal Shaggy, the original Justice League of America obviously created a second Shaggy Man to battle the first, and the two just duke it out in an underground cavern where they remain buried for all of eternity. It was later revealed that Aquaman put the unconscious Shaggy Man in a capsule and placed him 20,000 feet below the surface of the ocean just for safety's sake. The Shaggy Man was later freed by Hector Hammond and transported to the Justice League satellite. This time it was Green Lantern who succeeded in defeating him by using his power ring to shrink the monster to a miniature size and imprisoning him. Fast forward a bit and the Shaggy Man popped up in Arizona, where the Green Lantern just straight up dropped the mountain on him. Soon after, the town of Justice was built around the mountain, and eventually the Shaggy Man broke free of his mountain prison. The Justice League defeated him after learning from his creator, Professor Zargarian, that the Shaggy Man's fur was a fiber optic conduit for energy created by photosynthesis. The Justice League managed to shave him and dump him on the dark side of the moon before his hair could grow back, and well, that was that. Check them out for yourself, starting with 1966's Justice League of America.
At number 10, we have Felix Faust. Although he's more of a classic character that might come off a bit campy, I think he still deserves a spot on the list. One of the reasons for that is that Faust would be a perfect candidate for the DCEU to explore the world of magic that exists in the comics, considering his power set. Felix Faust is able to access certain magical powers through his demonic familiars, giving him telepathy, summoning the dead, illusions, and much more. This could offer DC a way to cash in on the interest that the public clearly has for magic powers after the success of Doctor Strange and Scarlet Witch in the Marvel Universe, although in this case the character would be a villain. And despite the fact that he looks kind of cartoonish, we've seen comic adaptations modernize, or cinemify if you will, crazier characters before. At number 9 is Prometheus. What's unique about this entry is that Prometheus doesn't actually have any superpowers, which could be a cool opportunity for DC to explore the human side of a villain, like Marvel did with Thanos, for instance, which I think worked really well. And honestly, for a human character only using armor and technology to get as powerful as Prometheus does, he would be a very interesting DCEU character to see how he gets to that point of power and how he is capable of taking on the Justice League head to head. With his super advanced computerized helmet, he's able to download knowledge such as fighting styles and much more into his mind and learn new skills immediately. And this allows the character to grow in power exponentially, which offers for a cool arc in, say, a long-running TV series perhaps. I also just think Prometheus looks so cool that he needs to be featured in a live-action setting.
Number 8, The Flash. Although it feels weird to include Wally West's Flash on this list, sorry Wally, he was for a short time a Justice League villain, or at least an antagonist, and without meaning to be, kind of an effective one too. Although at the same time also being a victim himself here. This all went down in Heroes in Crisis, where Wally's own burden of knowledge of the previous continuity caused him to uncover records of trauma suffered by his fellow colleagues. Overwhelmed by emotion, Wally loses control of his powers, killing some who came to the Hero Therapy Center, known as Sanctuary, for counseling and treatment. Although like I said, he didn't really mean to. And later he was like, I gotta make this right. And he did make it right, so he's good. It's good now. Number 7, Lex Luthor. Many people see Lex Luthor as simply Superman's nemesis, but the truth is, his genius and ambition has also driven him to take on the whole league before as well. In fact, Lex has even been driven to make his own team to rival the League from time to time, being sometimes known as the leader of the Legion of Doom, depending on which continuity and which roster we're talking about, though it should be noted he was the leader of the original incarnation of that team that first appeared in the 70s animated series Super Friends. And even beyond that, Lex was also famous for targeting the Justice League with his Injustice Gang of the World in the 90s comics, which was actually brought together by Lex for the sole purpose of destroying the whole Justice League. So yeah, definitely makes you a Justice League villain if you're out to destroy them. Number 6, Batman Who Laughs. I think after the events of Dark Knight's death metal, we have to acknowledge the Darkest Knight, right? Hailing from the dark multiverse reality of Earth -22, the Batman Who Laughs was originally Bruce Wayne and operated as Batman before he became corrupted by the Joker. He would turn into a villainous combination of these two characters and become known as the Batman Who Laughs, an alternate version of Batman. While he would go on to rival other villains who are beyond even a multiversal level threat to our heroes, Batman Who Laughs, at his base level, without absorbing a bunch of other people's powers, is kinda actually just a guy. Although a really smart and diabolical evil genius sort of guy, and maybe a guy who, you know, had his physiology slightly altered by Joker venom. But anyways, truly it's his brilliant mind and his determination that makes him so deadly. Number 5. Legion of Doom. The Legion of Doom is pretty impressive considering that they're a group often made up of some of the Justice League's most powerful and recognizable foes, both their foes as individual superheroes as well as foes who have at one time or another threatened the entire Justice League. You know, like Lex Luthor. The Legion of Doom is often seen as competition to the League, being the evil version of the team who often seek to do things their own way, a much more sinister way, usually, but sometimes also seek to rival the League's achievements, operating in the name of the greater good. However, even when they're doing that, they're still kind of, against the League because they're like, we're better than you. So, yeah. Number 4. Pariah. The crazy thing is Pariah originally was just a scientist who wanted to help save the multiverse, or at least warn people about its destruction, but in so doing, he kind of became driven mad by its inevitable end. Pariah is the one behind the death of the Justice League in the Death of the Justice League story arc, which happened recently, which builds up to the Dark Crisis event. He succeeded where many have failed as major Justice League antagonists. He actually managed to, kill the Justice League. Perhaps this was possible for Pariah because his motivation to do so was so strong. He wasn't actually killing them out of hatred or because he felt, they were in his way or they had done him wrong, but because he felt their very existence basically threatened the existence of the multiverse. Seeing another major crisis coming that was in essence triggered by the consolidation of all continuities and universes at the end of Dark Knight's death metal, Pariah felt the only chance he'd have at stopping it would be to basically eliminate the heroes of the day, thereby stopping the progression of the coming crisis. To him it made sense. I don't know if it makes sense to you. I don't know if it makes sense to me, but to him it made sense. Number 3. Darkseid. Darkseid has to be one of the most powerful characters in the entire DC universe, hands down. Especially because although he might not appear to be on the same threat level as some of the others on our list, he's a villain that pretty much has to exist. In other words, you can never fully defeat Darkseid. Darkseid is, meaning that he will keep coming back even after he's defeated. This is because Darkseid is basically like a universal constant in the DC universe. Aside from that, Darkseid is a master strategist and is also known for being an immensely powerful warrior himself and being. He is insanely strong, nigh invulnerable, and comes equipped with Omega Beams, which are said to never miss their target. The beams can either disintegrate Darkseid's opponent completely or can be used as a life trap when Darkseid chooses instead to employ the Omega Sanction. The Omega Sanction actually traps targets in a series of synthetic lives, which was what happened to Batman instead when he was believed to have been killed by Darkseid. While some individuals can straight up resist the Omega effect, the Omega Beams are also said to be powerful enough to destroy entire planets, which seems like a contradiction, but hey, maybe the people that can avoid the Omega effect are also themselves powerful enough to destroy planets. Would that make sense? I don't know. Number 2. Anti-Monitor. Speaking of beings who have the ability to destroy entire worlds, Anti-Monitor one-ups this by possessing the ability to destroy entire universes. He is the villain we know from the famous Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover event. This event completely changed the history of the DC universe, after the Anti-Monitor attacked and successfully destroyed many worlds, causing the continuity to in essence be reset and reorganized as a result of the fight against him. Also, I feel like you're a powerful villain if you can change up the whole world like that. That's pretty crazy. Number 1. Perpetua. Perpetua is actually probably one of the most powerful villains that the Justice League has ever come up against to date, and probably one of the most powerful villains just ever. Period. End of statement. She is the mother of the Anti-Monitor, Monitor or Over-Monitor, and the World Forger. Perpetua is actually believed to be one of the most fearsome beings in all of the Omniverse. Never mind the universe or even the multiverse, the Omniverse. The Omniverse holds within it all the known multiverses in existence for those that believe in that. That being the multiverses that are not just DC, but DC, Marvel, any multiverse you can imagine that exists, including our own. Which means, yeah, Perpetua is basically on a whole other level. While she was defeated in Dark Knight's death metal, Perpetua is still seen as being a foe possessing nigh omnipotence, with her even being implied as the creator of the universe. universe, having likely been the hand of creation involved in sparking the Big Bang. She was tricked by the Batman who laughs and manipulated by him into giving up kinda like all of her crisis energy power, thereby in the end being defeated, but still, at base levels, she would be considered one of the most powerful beings in the known omniverse. Even though now, you know, she got put in the source wall and it got destroyed, but still, I still think we need to tip our hats. Sure, she'll be back at some point. Number 10, Crime Syndicate. The Crime Syndicate are the alternate Justice League of Earth 3. The main difference between them and the main continuity team though is that they are evil counterparts to the world's mightiest heroes. Instead of protecting the people of their Earth, they use their power to intimidate and control them instead. Not so good. The Crime Syndicate are pretty fearsome when it comes to their individual power sets and abilities, rivaling the League's members themselves, but the team's weakness lies in their lack of teamwork, and often in their inflated egos. And friends, before we move on to the next spot on this list, if you love what we do here at Top 10 Nerd, if you love my black trench coat, be sure to let us know by clicking that subscribe and hitting that like button. Number 9, Ra's al Ghul, or Ra's al Ghul if you prefer. Ra's al Ghul is traditionally thought of as a Batman villain exclusively, but he's also threatened the whole world before. And he's also threatened the whole Justice League, managing to quickly get rid of all of them using Batman's own intel, which Ra's stole. Ra's al Ghul becomes a JLA villain in the story JLA Tower of Babel. Here he uses one of Batman's strengths against him, and in so doing manages to defeat almost the entire League, except for Batman, who manages to figure out what's happening and in the end eventually put a stop to it before Ra's is able to fully execute his plan. The really crazy thing is, while Ra's did hope to defeat the League, he really just wanted them out of the way so that they wouldn't stop him. So killing the League wouldn't have even been his main focus here, but imagine if it had been his main focus. The other interesting element in Tower of Babel is it also kind of implies that while being team leader, Batman is also kind of a villain to the team, and even if Raz's plan ends up being stopped and the League recovers from the temporary defeat, Ra's at the very least did manage to destabilize the team by turning them against their own leader, Batman, who is forced to leave the team as a result of the fallout. So in a way, he kind of won that.
Moving on to number 8, Nick Necro. Nick, who first appeared in Justice League Dark Volume 1, Issue 12 in 2012, was formerly the greatest mage in New York. He was a mentor to both John Constantine and Zatanna, and he was also banished to Hell. Yeah, talk about a resume. That latter bit went down when Nick betrayed his disciples on an obsessive quest to obtain the Book of Magic. He was pulled out of Hell by Felix Faust, who, alongside Dr. Mist, wanted his aid to recover the Books of Magic. Necro was also determined to get revenge on Zatanna and Constantine. This all went down in a story arc titled The War for the Books of Magic, and ended with Necro being locked up in a metahuman facility. In at 7, Grail. First appearing in Forever Evil issue 8 from 2014, Grail is Darkseid's daughter. But she's also half Amazonian, having been born to an assassin named Marina on the very same day that Wonder Woman was born. What a person to share a birthday with. She was prophesized to cause great destruction under the command of the Anti-Monitor, and she is pretty darn powerful thanks to her new god Amazonian hybrid physiology, able to use magic to dimensional travel, resurrect others, summon, corrupt the will of others, produce omega beams, and also, she has superhuman strength, speed, durability, stamina, all that jazz. And she's immortal, so that's fun. In at 6, Barbatos. Finally getting into some villains who debuted after the New 52 and in DC Rebirth. Gotta love continuity reboots, am I right? Barbatos is a beastly one. First debuting in Dark Days, the Casting issue 1 from 2017, Barbatos, who is also known as the Bat God, was created by someone called the World Forger. More on them later. He is an entity who was created to consume universes that were in decay. The most stable universes would become part of the DC main multiverse, and Barbatos, a dragon-esque bat creature, would be sent out to destroy the other ones. But Barbatos' lust for destruction got the better of him, and he killed his master, corrupting the Forge of Worlds, which would later become known as the Dark Multiverse. Because he no longer did his job, unstable worlds persisted and would eventually join the Dark Multiverse too. Barbatos came into contact with Batman and the rest of the League though much later, when he set his sights on destroying the regular multiverse. Oh, and side note, he also claims to be the bat that Bruce Wayne saw through the window of his home the night he became Batman. Yeah, Moving on to a much less scarier villain, in at 5, the Omega Titans. Actually, they're pretty terrifying too. First appearing in DC Nation Volume 2, Issue 0, the Omega Titans, aka the Four Brothers, or the Four Mothers depending on the planet you're on, are a group of eons-old entities who are believed to have been the ones who created life in the universe. As the legends go, at the end of the universe, the Omega Titans are supposed to consume all life to determine which of their natures had the most impact throughout the universe. Those natures being mystery, entropy, wisdom, and wonder. They first appeared after the Source Wall was broken, the Source Wall being the barrier surrounding the multiverse, and began to consume all life on a planet called Kalu. In order to put a stop to the situation from growing more dire, Brainiac formed 4 different teams from Earth's heroes and villains in order to face the threat that the Titans posed. Now, the Titans possess immense power, capable of absorbing galaxies for energy, and they can crush planets within their fists. According to Brainiac, the likes of Superman, Wonder Woman, Etrigan, etc. are just so tiny and inconsequential to them. In at number 4, Umbrax. Another 2018 villain here, let's talk about Umbrax, who first popped up in Justice League Volume 4, Issue 3. Umbrax is another mind warp of a villain. It's a dark emotional entity, a timeless primordial force of the cosmos, which acts as the center of the invisible spectrum. So remember how we mentioned Barbatos earlier? When he was trying to take over the multiverse, his Dark Knights broke the Source Wall, and a piece of the Source Wall, known as the Totality, broke free and released a bunch of strange energies into the universe. Now this included 6 hidden primal forces, one of which broke the seal that kept Umbrax at bay. It would unleash its power over the ultraviolet part of the invisible spectrum, and Sinestro and Lex Luthor would end up unleashing it on Earth. In at number 3, Perpetua. Introduced in Justice League Volume 4, Issue 8 in 2018, we've got yet another villain ready to give you an existential crisis. Oh, Perpetua. Perpetua is the first creator and mother of the Overmonitor, Anti-Monitor, and the World Forger. She is said to be the most feared being in the greater Omniverse. She is a super celestial, part of a race that was sent by the judges of the Source to create a new system of life within the greater Omniverse. Yeah, we are talking big stuff here. 20 billion years ago, she created the first multiverse. She then created suns to monitor each of the realms of matter within her multiverse. Flash forward 5 billion years later, Perpetua searched all of the universes within her multiverse to find those with great potential, which brought her to Earth 0. Seeing humans and Martians as imperfect, she merged the 2 species together to create something called Apex Predators, who would then serve as her soldiers to fight against the judges of the Source. When the other Super Celestials found out what she was up to, twisting the scale of judgment and defying her function, she was sealed away into the Source Wall. After the Source Wall was broken, she regained her corporeal form thanks to Lex Luthor and Brainiac. In at number 2, the Triumvirate of Sea Gods. Poking our heads out of the cosmos for a hot second with this number, let's talk about these 3 who first appeared in Justice League Volume 4, Issue 10 back in 2018, from a story arc called Drowned Earth Prelude, which was a prelude story, as you can probably tell. The Triumvirate are ocean deities of other galaxies. Like Poseidon is the ocean deity of our galaxy, they are to others. Now, the group is made up of Commander Drogue, Captain Gull, and Fleet Admiral Tide. They're gods, so therefore have the physiology and powers of gods. Wonder Woman even noted that Commander Drogue's power eclipses Superman's. That's intense. They lead a massive and loyal alien army, and Drogue has an alien kraken called the Flood, who does pretty much anything he commands. They would continue to be villains of the leagues during the Drowned Earth Justice League Aquaman crossover event that led into the beginning of 2019. Speaking of 2019, that brings us to our final number, in at 1, World Forger. World Forger has got one hell of a family. He's Perpetua's firstborn son and brother to Monitor and Anti-Monitor, and while he was first mentioned in Dark Knight's Metal Issue 4 in 2018, it wasn't until Justice League Volume 4 Issue 10 in 2019 that he really made his first full appearance. He also has a name beyond World Forger. It's Alpheus. After he was created by Perpetua, she assigned him to the World Forger, a place in the deep darkness beneath creation in which universes were created from the feelings and the fears of every living being in the multiverse itself. The most stable of worlds would rise into the regular multiverse, or rather, the orrery of worlds, and the unstable ones were dispatched of by Barbatos, Alpheus' dragon, and as we mentioned earlier, he was killed by his dragon. But after Barbatos was defeated by Batman in the Justice League, Alpheus was reformed in the 6th dimension. Then Perpetua was liberated and Alpheus started to create countless universes in order to create a perfect multiverse to replace the current one. Whenever a crisis occurs, aka a reboot event, something called a crisis anvil appears before Alpheus, and he strikes it with his hammer, causing a new multiverse to replace the former one, with the life energies of the prior multiverse transferring to the new one. So in other words, Alpheus has been using his hammer a whole lot in contemporary times for DC, hasn't he? Starting us off in at number 10, Paraxis. Debuting in Justice League International issue 2 from 2011, Paraxis was a villain introduced during the New 52. He's described as an intergalactic menace, hopping from world to world, picking out ripe planets, destroying them, and then selling their resources. A villain for the Justice League International, he was awakened from a deep sleep in space when the Signal Men, giant alien robot scouts, were activated on Earth. Paraxis is not a threat to be taken lightly either. He was able to capture the entire Justice League International team, and while they were able to break free and save the Earth from his plans to destroy the planet and scavenge it, he did manage to get away, and swore revenge as he flew off into space. Moving on to number 9, David Graves. Here we have a foe of the regular Justice Leagues, David Graves, a man who was a historian and an author who was infected by a disease that paralyzed him and killed his family. So, as an author, he had written texts on Atlantis, the miracles of Fatima, and other fringe subjects. He and his family were also saved by the Justice League, which prompted him to write his most popular book, Justice League: Gods Among Men. But then his family came down with that unknown disease, for which David blamed the Justice League. He snapped, shot his doctor, and then disappeared, returning 4 years later to steal the Orb of Ra. From this, he was able to use spirits to feed off of people's misery. Graves first appeared in Justice League issue 6 back in 2012.
Number 8. Time Trapper. The Time Trapper is often associated with the Legion of Superheroes, and he operates as a master manipulator of time. If you know comics and time travel, then you know that this gives the Time Trapper control over the fabric of reality itself. Possessing the power to alter and manipulate the past, present, and future, the Trapper can rewrite history on an unprecedented scale. He was able to age anyone he chose to the point of bones or ashes if he wanted to. He was capable of creating an iron curtain of time, which was a barrier which prevented time travel. The Time Trapper was also able to create a temporal force barrier which he used to seal a time-traveling Superman off from the 20th century. He was able to take a slice of time from the post-crisis DCU 1 million years in the past and craft its Earth and Krypton into realities similar to the recently destroyed Earth 1 universe, forming a pocket universe. He made a pocket universe. That's nuts. These are godly feats of time manipulation and control. Often depicted as a shadowy, hooded figure, the character's level of power is so vast that even immensely powerful cosmic entities such as the Timeless Ones tread cautiously in his presence. On top of that though, he possesses power with size alteration, intangibility, flight, telepathy, telekinesis, alongside symbolizing the very essence of temporal manipulation and unpredictability in the DC universe. Number 7. General Zod. Hailing from the planet Krypton, General Zod possesses the same superhuman abilities as Superman due to their shared origin. These abilities include super strength, speed, invulnerability, heat vision, and flight, making him a physical match for the Man of Steel. What set Zod apart though is that he was originally the leader of the military defense for the Kryptonian Science Council. He betrayed the Science Council after learning that they were lying to him about the inevitable destruction of the planet Krypton and was banished to the Phantom Zone by Superman's father, Jor-El, who he swore vengeance against for not siding with him. His formidable combat experience and tactical genius acquired during his time as a military leader on Krypton make him a fearsome adversary in battle. Zod's obsession with Kryptonian superiority and his unrelenting desire to establish dominance often drive him to harness his power to their fullest extent, doing things that would make Superman faint. Throughout his appearances in DC Comics, General Zod's determination, belief in his cause, and great power, coupled with the fact that he pretty much always comes back somehow, make him pretty hard to put down for good, unless you're Henry Cavill. Number 6. Vandal Savage. Vandal Savage was alive 50,000 years ago as a chief of a tribe of other cavemen, but when he came into contact with a strange meteorite, it exploded and bathed him in this strange alien radiation that gave him immunity to aging, disease, and fatigue, meaning he is effectively immortal. The meteorite also increased his intelligence to superhuman levels, which combined with 50,000 years of learning, experiencing, and living alongside every single technological technological innovation in the history of man, Vandal Savage possesses skills in almost all areas of the human experience, even basically becoming immune to pain. Specifically though, he focuses on the tactical skills that would help him become a world conqueror. His schemes range from being a conqueror to a criminal mastermind, leveraging his intellect and immortality to reshape civilizations and wield substantial influence. His power is further magnified by his ability to learn and adapt from each encounter, making him an almost insurmountable adversary for even the most powerful heroes. With his immortality, intelligence, and complex motivations, Vandal Savage is one villain that seems to just keep on popping up. Number 5. Parallax. This cosmic entity is a cosmic entity, so it kinda defeats what I just said in the intro, but he's the living embodiment of fear and has created several problems for different heroes over the years, and still he's somehow kind of small and relegated to like this corner of DC. Originally imprisoned by the Guardians of the Universe in their central power battery, his presence would eventually lead to the corruption of a couple of the Green Lantern Corps' power rings, creating the Yellow Lanterns. Parallax is immortal and exists as pure energy, unable to be destroyed and more than capable of manipulating matter and energy on a cosmic scale. He's able to generate such intense fear in a person that he can actually control them, having done this to several heroes without much effort over the years, the likes of which include Superman and even Wonder Woman. His biggest feat would have to be the corruption of Hal Jordan though, causing the guy to do some pretty unspeakable things like wiping out the entire Green Lantern Corps. Funnily enough, that wasn't the original reason, but DC just retconned it to that so Hal could seem a little bit more redeemable after he just did that. Well, there you go. Number 4. Reverse Flash. Eobard Thawne is what happens when you take the Flash and make him utterly insane. Possessing a deep obsession with the Flash, Thawne's connection to the negative Speed Force grants him superhuman speed and reflexes that meet those of the Scarlet Speedster himself, and sometimes go a little bit past that. This negative Speed Force grants him a kind of power over time manipulation and enabling him to travel through time at will. This mastery of temporal mechanics allows him to alter history, create alternate timelines, and manipulate events to his advantage. His ability to affect the past and future makes him a uniquely terrifying opponent, as he can unravel the very fabric of reality itself. Then, as a villain of Flash, Eobard's intimate knowledge of the Flash's life and history enables him to anticipate his every single move, making it extremely challenging for the Flash to outsmart him, and Eobard has revealed that he has manipulated Barry's life to be the way that it is, which is kind of just a huge old time loop that probably unravels if you try to think about it too much, but just don't do that, so there you go. This combination of incredible speed, time manipulation, and strategic intellect makes Reverse Flash an arch nemesis who constantly pushes the Flash to his limits, solidifying his reputation as truly powerful, incredibly unpredictable, and very hard to stop. Number 3. Starro. If you have seen the newest Suicide Squad movie, the one with Idris Elba and John Cena, then you know who Starro is. He's that massive, terrifying starfish alien conqueror that was releasing millions of tiny starfish that turn people into unwilling servants. Starro is actually one of the Justice League's earliest villains, and he poses a massive threat as he can use his reproduced drones to take control of an entire population, and he has subdued members of the Justice League multiple times, just like how it was done in that film. Originally, he could even turn actual starfish into deputies of his, making multiple Starros. Other than the mind control, drones, copies, its immense resilience, and energy absorption, Starro is also incredibly capable with regenerating, being able to grow back fully from just a fragment of his own body. There are some versions of Starro who are the size of an ocean, and they are totally capable of terraforming entire planets. Yes, he's basically a starfish, but imagining an absolutely massive ocean-sized starfish attacking our planet with drones that can turn people into unwilling servants with almost no way to stop it? That's pretty terrifying. Number 2. Eclipso. When Eclipso made his comic book debut in 1963, he was nothing more than the evil side of archaeologist Bruce Gordon that came out during the eclipse. Pretty simple. But then we fast forward to DC's 1992 Eclipso: The Darkness Within, and out of kind of nowhere, Eclipso is revealed to be a powerful cosmic entity representing the wrath of God that turned evil and was cast from heaven, replaced by the Spectre. Now, he is an entity who is trapped in a gigantic black diamond that was cut into smaller diamonds, one of which was found by Bruce Wayne years and years ago. In an event called Darkness Within, these fragments of the black diamond were activated on various powerful beings, beings, allowing Eclipso to possess them, and one of these beings happened to be Superman himself, and the world's heroes had to fight tooth and nail to try and stop this powerful possessed Superman. It was the wizard Shazam and Billy Batson, Captain Marvel, who finally stopped him, and with the help of the Spectre, Eclipso was forced back into the reformed Diamond, but he's not gone. He's still around. He's just chilling in the Diamond somewhere. Number 1. Solaris. Introduced in the storyline DC 1 million, Solaris stands as a sentient, malevolent, artificial sun from the 20th century, but he survived till and had a bigger part to play in the distant 853rd century. That's a lot of centuries. What sets Solaris apart from other villains is its status as a living star, a conscious being born from the fusion of advanced technology and the essence of a dying sun. Possessing vast cosmic power, Solaris is a relentless foe who manipulates radiation, gravity, and he's a sun. He's hella powerful, manipulating immense energy to reshape its surroundings and project formidable attacks. Its motivation lies in a deep-seated desire to spread its influence and attain ultimate dominance in the universe, but also in the fact that he was defeated by the second Superman and has vowed vengeance against all Supermen who pop up after that. Solaris possesses a unique threat that transcends traditional physical battles, becoming the concept of a living sun with malevolent intent adds an enthralling layer of cosmic mystery and existential danger, and I don't want to think about that.
Number 10. The Demons 3. The Demons 3 are the demon brothers that ruled the galaxy 1 billion years ago until they were banished by the Timeless Ones. Felix Faust summoned their power using a bell, a wheel, and a jar that they had created for this purpose, only to be foiled by the League. They later worked with Neron against the League, trying to bring the moon down upon Earth, and then skip ahead to the 25th century and we see the Demons 3 released from their prisons once more. And they battled the heroes of this time period only to be stopped by Zatanna's magic that was actually attached to the jar, bell, and wheel that they were imprisoned in. Skip ahead once more to the 30th century and they are once again freed and become the pawns of Mordru the Magician. They were all pretty easily defeated though, with two of them battling it out to their mutual obliteration, and then the superheroes are able to combine forces to overcome the surviving Ghast, who is imprisoned by Dr. Fate in the reconstructed JLA satellite. Check them out in 1962's Justice League of America, number 10. Number 9. Royal Flush Gang. Originally set up by Amos Fortune, who we will talk about just a little bit later, the Royal Flush Gang was a gang consisting of the Ace of Clubs, King of Clubs, Queen of Clubs, Jack of Clubs, and the Ten of Clubs. They committed petty thefts of valuables and technology or were hired out of their skills for others' gain, but they were stopped by the League every single time. A second gang was set up by Hector Hammond and came closer than the original gang to defeating the Justice League. After their original Ace and Android was destroyed, Fortune took over the gang and killed all the members of the first gang except for the Jack of Clubs. As time went on, the gang grew and eventually got to the point where Fortune introduced the Heart and Diamond suits as well. The face cards would still be the most senior with the role of Ace, usually but not always as the Muscle, either Android or human, and then the Tens control the minor members or the Pips. These henchmen could gain or lose Pips depending on their performance, with rivalry amongst them was not too common though. Check them out for yourself to start learning more about them in 1966's Justice League of America, number 43.
At number 8, we have the Conglomerate. This group is basically a bizarro version of the Justice League created by Booster Gold. The group is formed after Booster's departure from the Justice League International due to a lack of respect from his peers. When Booster first fails to bring together a competent group of heroes to form the first iteration of the Conglomerate, someone named Claire Montgomery comes in to manage the group. With her, she brings along the likes of Deadeye, an alternate Green Arrow, Fiero, a guy with fire powers, Frostbite, an ice power guy, Elastaman, a stretchy man, Element Man, much like Metamorpho, Scarab, a knockoff of Blue Beetle, and Slipstream, a dollar store Flash. When they engage in a small friendly skirmish with the Justice League International, the fight quickly turns serious, and everyone learns at once that these new members have actually been brought from an antimatter world called Quard, and they're basically just entirely evil, and always had been. Luckily, the JLI take them down, but it's a close one.
Number 7. Squadron Sinister. This isn't so much an evil alternate Justice League as this team actually appears in the Marvel universe. But I'm gonna count it because I'm just stubborn like that. The original Squadron Sinister was created as a sort of obvious play on DC Comics Justice League characters Superman, Batman, Green Lantern, and The Flash, with the characters Hyperion, Nighthawk, Dr. Spectrum, and the hilariously named Wizard, respectively. The team was created by the Grand Master after he encountered the Squadron Supreme, and they first appeared in Avengers number 69 when they were pitted against the Avengers in a game between the Grand Master and Kang the Conqueror. They're bad guys who are counterparts to 4 members of the Justice League. I gotta stop justifying my reasons, they're on the list. Argue with me down below if you don't like it.
Alright, at number 6 we have the Justice Lords. Appearing in the animated series Justice League in the episode titled A Better World, this evil team is led by a radicalized Superman. Radicalized because he witnesses Lex Luthor murder the Flash and threaten nuclear war. So, Superman decides he'd abandon the typical hero's code of conduct and kill the bald tyrant himself. And in this alternate universe, Lex Luthor isn't just some super rich supervillain working away and hiding, he's actually worked his way to becoming the President of the United States. So, after his death, there is a power vacuum to be filled. And who would be better rulers than this evil alternate Justice League? No one. They didn't think so anyway, so they take over and put in place a totalitarian government with the justification being that they are protecting humanity from itself. And they start calling themselves the Justice Lords, which, I mean, you should sort of know you're the bad guys when the word Lord is in your title. Luckily, the real Superman is able to catch on and take them out of power before anything goes too far.
Number 5, Injustice League. Okay, so we have the Crime Syndicate of America, but there was also a team of villains put together to fight that team of villains. So, sort of technically making these villains heroes, but also not really because they're still villains. Right? The important information here is that the Injustice League, at least the one I'm referring to, was formed to combat the Crime Syndicate of America from Earth 3. The team's villainous members included Bizarro, Black Manta, Black Adam, Catwoman, Deathstroke, Sinestro or Parallax, Captain Cold, and they were formed and led by Lex Luthor. The team first appeared in Forever Evil number 3 in January of 2014 when the Crime Syndicate of America invaded the Prime Earth universe and tried, and very nearly did, take over the world.
At number 4 we have the Injustice Syndicate. I know, lots of groups with Syndicate and Injustice in their names. Well, that's because this evil version of the Justice League actually exists as a sort of combination between the Injustice League and the Crime Syndicate, both of which are included in this list respectively. Appearing in Batman the Brave and the Bold, in the episode called Deep Cover for Batman, Batman manages to travel to their evil dimension and infiltrate their operations disguised as Owlman. He sees that this group comprises of an evil version of himself, along with other evil alternate versions of other heroes he knows and works with. While eavesdropping, Batman learns of their plans to, destroy other universes entirely, which of course, he feels is something he needs to put a stop to. And it can't wait, naturally. So he decides to take all of them on himself, and because he's Batman, and it is his TV show after all, he wins. Those universes can thank him later.
Number 3, the Joker League. In Emperor Joker number 1 of October 2000, the Joker has gained 99.99% of the reality warping powers of the 5th dimensional being, Mr. Mxyzptlk, and he used them to completely warp the world into an insane offshoot of our real world. In this Joker world, he has put together an evil, insane version of the Justice League called the Joker League of Anarchy. The team members include some characters we've seen before, such as Bizarro number 1, Enigma, who's the Riddler, Gravedigger Lad, who is actually Jimmy Olsen, Lois Lane, Harley Quinn, and Poison Ivy. He has also created completely new characters that are wholly original to this story: Ignition, Bounty, Schism, and Scorched. He even has Lex Luthor as a jester. They are basically just the henchmen of this already pretty much all-powerful version of the Joker. Just another way of keeping him entertained, it seems.
At number 2, I'm putting the Injustice League from the video game Injustice: Gods Among Us. Most of us already know how this story goes, but in case you don't, this is one of the cooler and more well-written storylines about an evil alternate version of the Justice League. In most cases on this list, these evil groups are created by an alternate reality, which is always fun but pretty simple to come up with. But this storyline shows a radicalized Superman leading the Justice League to the dark side. And like I said, this isn't because he's an evil version of Superman or one that's possessed by some evil force. He's genuinely turned to evil after the Joker tricks him into killing Lois Lane. So to combat this new unexpected evil force, Batman decides to bring in other members from the Justice League from another universe, and the result is some pretty great fighting gameplay. And right as the game was being released, a comic book series of the same name was also being released in tandem, serving as a prequel to the game, where you can derive general story points from the game itself. Most of the backstory I just explained actually comes from the comics. It's cool to see the video game and comic book worlds working in tandem, and they make a pretty cool new storyline that I figure has to be ranked pretty high on this list.
Number 1. The Crime Syndicate of America. The Crime Syndicate of America hails from the strength-obsessed Earth 3, and is a twisted, evil version of many characters who make up the main universe Justice League of America. Its members include Ultraman in place of Superman, Thomas Wayne Jr., aka Owlman, and Alfred Pennyworth as the Outsider, Superwoman, who was Lois Lane at one point and Donna Troy at another, the cowardly Harold Jordan and vengeful John Stewart, who are both Power Ring, which are evil Green Lanterns, at different times, John Allen and John Chambers separately also as Johnny Quick, Atomica, Sea King, Deathstorm, Grid, and John Johns. They come into contact with the main universe many times, and they almost always spell out bad news, as you'd expect from the antithesis to the Justice League of America.
Number 10. Joker. The Joker is infamous for his lethal nature and chaotic behavior. He uses his expertise in chemical engineering to create deadly weapons such as razor-tipped playing cards, acid-spraying lapel flowers, and deadly joy buzzers. His disregard for human life and unpredictable nature make him a formidable foe for any hero. He has caused multiple tragedies in Gotham City, leading to the death and injury of many different people. The Joker's complete lack of empathy and morals, coupled with his willingness to go to extreme lengths to achieve his goals, make him an exceptionally deadly character in the world of comics and an exceptional foe for not just Batman, but the Justice League as well. During the modern era, Joker has joined up with the Injustice League in an effort to defeat the whole premier superhero roster, and also targeted the whole team all by himself following the events of Endgame, manipulating them into mistrusting Batman and using them as weapons when he turned them against the Dark Knight. And for reference, if you're wondering when I say Endgame if I'm talking about the right publisher, I am. DC also had an Endgame event too. I know it's confusing. And friends, before we move on to our next spot on this list, if you love what we do here at Top 10 Nerd, be sure to show us that you love us by clicking that like button, especially if you like when we talk about villains. I know I love to talk about villains. I hope you love it too. Number 9. Maxwell Lord. Maxwell Lord's power set has changed over time, but the fact remains that when it comes to taking control or influencing others in the DC universe, he's one of the best. He has taken control of the minds of some of the most powerful heroes in DC, such as Superman and Martian Manhunter. And because his powers have fluctuated over his history as a character, so have his power levels, with him at one point being able to extend his telepathic reach to manipulate the minds of billions at a time on Earth.
At number 8 is Amazo. Amazo is a classic Justice League villain, and he still holds up, other than his name. His name is a bit corny, but he was introduced back in 1960, so what else would we expect? Credited as the very first android in the world, Amazo was created by Professor Ivo, sort of like a more humanoid version of Ultron, except he's created by a villain with the intention of making him evil. He's also got a very impressive power where he can absorb the powers and skills of others in his immediate vicinity, which gives this villain a lot of potential as a serious threat in the DCEU. Maybe he'd be more of a mini-boss type villain, but I think it would make a lot of sense that he would appear in the DCU, just based on his history with the JLA and his crazy power set. At number 7 is Despero. Another classic villain, Despero first appears in 1960's Justice League of America, the self-titled comic book series. So even though Starro is known as the first villain that the JLA ever faced, Despero is the first villain in the official Justice League storyline. So now, I'm not going to claim that Despero has the most original design. He could risk coming off as a pretty generic looking alien bad guy, but his powers are pretty impressive, with flight, telepathy, and mind control in his arsenal. He'd be like the evil, telepathic Red Hulk of the DCEU, which might actually be a cool villain for the League to be faced with in an upcoming project. At number 6 is Vandal Savage. This guy is known as an immortal caveman who has lived 50,000 years to the present day, and having taken part in many significant events in Earth's history. And honestly, I just love this backstory. I think Vandal Savage could be used to ground the DCEU in a way that it's been trying to do for a while now. With the Man of Steel, Justice League, and Suicide Squad franchises not quite hitting like the studios hoped they would, it might be time they bring in a character that has everything to do with Earth and the history of humankind. Perhaps they could weave in new villainous motivations based on his experience witnessing the evils of humanity throughout history, or maybe, I don't know, how the Earth has fallen victim to climate change at the hands of humans during his extended lifetime. I mean, he's been in support of some of the worst tyrants in the history of the world, so his connection with the human plight of evil could really bring a grounding presence to a DCEU project in a way we maybe haven't seen before. At number 5 is Grail. Daughter of Darkseid and Amazonian Marina the Black, Grail is a much more modern DC villain, and she could add a really interesting angle to the DCEU. Partly because she actually opposes her father, Darkseid, on many fronts, which adds for some cool internal conflict within the villain ranks. But mostly because she could be woven into Wonder Woman's history due to their common Amazonian heritage. I think adding a villain who is linked to such a major character as Wonder Woman was a great idea in the comics, and if Grail makes it into the DCEU, we can not only learn more about the family history and therefore the humanity of Darkseid, but also about Wonder Woman's family history as well. At number 4 is Brainiac. This guy needed to go higher on the list just simply because he's one of the more recognizable and iconic of the DC villains. And I know what you're thinking. Brainiac is more of a Superman villain than a Justice League villain, but considering he has faced off against the Justice League as well, I think that qualifies him to some degree. And it's Brainiac. He's got to appear in the DCEU at some point. Even Zack Snyder has admitted that he seriously considered the villain for an appearance in his Justice League film. I could personally see Brainiac playing more like an Emperor Palpatine or a Baron Harkonnen from Dune, working behind the scenes with another villain taking the forefront at first, and then during a sequel coming out and showing his true power. But that's just me. At number 3 is the Crime Syndicate of America. So is it just me, or would an evil version of the Justice League make for a pretty cool and unique antagonistic presence in a live-action DC project? As much as the evil doppelganger trope might be an old one, it still hasn't been tested out on the big screen in any major way yet, at least in the last 20 years. And when Marvel brought Civil War to the movies, it worked better than anyone might have expected. And that makes me think that heroes facing off against each other in the DCEU would really resonate with people right now. And with the Crime Syndicate coming from Earth 3, it could also open the door to more interdimensional conflicts. At number 2, we have the Injustice League. As much as it might not make for the most focused movie, having a whole team of the most iconic DC villains would just be epic. And I know there's Suicide Squad, but I'm talking as like an antagonistic force to a main hero in their movie. But I digress. And I put this one higher on the list not because it would be easy to pull off, but because if it were pulled off properly, it could be one of the more iconic efforts in the DCEU. To be honest, the only way I could see something like this really working to its fullest potential is if DC builds up their cinematic universe for another 5 years at least, and introduces each project's villain in a way that gives them all enough depth and hype that an appearance by the Injustice League would be invited, but we'll see. Finally, at number 1, we have Anti-Monitor. Probably the most powerful villain in the DC Comics, Anti-Monitor has faced off against just about every DC hero you could imagine at one point or another. Anti-Monitor is also one of the oldest villains in the comics. Born at the dawn of time, Anti-Monitor is the antithesis to his brother, the Monitor. And with Monitor being the one to watch over the positive matter multiverse, Anti-Monitor exists to watch over, you guessed it, the antimatter multiverse. The only other character I can equate Anti-Monitor to would be Galactus, mainly due to his sheer size and invulnerability, but also due to the fact that neither character has been given the screen time they deserve given their influence throughout the comics. Alright, at number 10 we have the very silly but nonetheless evil Super Enemies. In the 1970s animated TV show Super Friends, there's an episode in 1979 called Universe of Evil, where Superman travels to an alternate universe to meet the evil counterparts to the Super Friends, very creatively named the Super Enemies. And the team is made up of all those bad guys we've all known so well and grown up with. You know, like Aquaman with an eye patch, and tinted red Batman, and oh, who could forget the iconic alien monkey Gleek? What a trailblazing team of supervillains they were. But as much as I roast them, they do actually pose a decent threat to Superman in this storyline, to the point where they team up with the military armed with kryptonite weapons, and even bring in their own version of Superman, giving our Superman a good old run for his money. But luckily, Superman Prime finds something called an antimatter flask, which turns all the super enemies back to being good again. Thank God Aquaman retires that eye patch and is no longer so intensely menacing looking. What a relief.
Number 9. Justice League of Assassins. Unfortunately, this evil Justice League didn't stick around too long. Being first introduced in Superman Volume 4, number 15 in March 2017, the Justice League of Assassins on Earth 14 were a group of augmented, mostly non-superpowered soldiers led by the obviously powerful Superman. The team was made up of Wonder Woman, Aquaman, Flash, Batman, Harley Quinn, and Green Lantern. With the exception of Superman, their powers relied mainly on weapons and technology, but primarily they used advanced firearms. Ultimately, they were all slaughtered, with this Superman being kidnapped by Prophecy, which is a shame, because this team looked super cool and they seemed to inhabit a pretty dark and grim looking post-apocalypse. Could have been very interesting.
Number 8. Amazo. In 1960, Amazo debuted as a powerful villain in The Brave and the Bold, issue number 30, to challenge the Justice League of America, created by Gardner Fox and Mike Sikowski. Amazo is no ordinary android though. He possesses technology that allows him to replicate the abilities and powers of the superheroes that he battles. This gives him a significant advantage in combat, making him an opponent to be reckoned with. Additionally, Amazo can even duplicate his opponent's weapons, making him an even more challenging adversary. The Flash, Aquaman, Martian Manhunter, Wonder Woman, and Green Lantern make up the roster that Amazo initially faced, and as such, these are usually the power sets he possesses by default. Number 7. Vandal Savage. Vandal Savage, also known as Vandar Adge, is a formidable adversary who has been terrorizing the world for over, get this, 50,000 years. He possesses advanced healing abilities and immortality, which he gained after coming into contact with a mysterious meteorite during prehistoric times. Despite not being known for necessarily crazy superhuman powers, he is a brilliant strategist and skilled fighter with vast knowledge in various sciences and forms of combat. Over the course of history, he has faced off against other immortals and reincarnating heroes such as Hawkman, Hawkgirl, Immortal Man, and Resurrection Man. He's also proven to be a recurring thorn in the side of the Justice League. In his quest for power and attempts to defeat the JLA, he has even allied himself with organizations such as the Injustice Society and the Legion of Doom. Beware of Vandal Savage, for he's definitely a relentless and cunning villain who will stop at nothing to achieve his goals. And he's got the experience to back it up. Number 6. Brainiac. Brainiac may have been defeated by Superman when he was kicked out of his ship and succumbed to Earth's germs, and yes, that may be the first thing that I personally think of when I think of him, but that one defeat does not define him as a weak villain, especially considering how much he has evolved over the years and how long he's been around. In fact, would you be surprised to hear that Brainiac's strength lies not only in his intellect, but also in his physical abilities? In Jeff Johns' Action Comics 5-part story arc, Brainiac, it was revealed that the previous Brainiac Superman had encountered were more android replicas of the real deal, and that the real Brainiac was far more powerful, both mentally and physically, than all of them combined. This depiction of Brainiac as a formidable foe showcases his true potential and cements his place as a top-tier villain in regards to the Justice League's Rogues Gallery. Number 5. Lex Luthor. Did you know that Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster also created Lex Luthor, the notorious villain from DC Comics, just like they also created Superman? Of course, it would make sense they made Superman's #1 villain. He first appeared in Action Comics issue number 23 way back in 1940 and has been Superman's arch enemy ever since. In recent years, he's been portrayed as a power-hungry CEO of LexCorp who wants to rid the world of Superman. He claims it's because Supes is a threat to humanity, but sometimes it seems he's simply jealous of how much people love the Man of Steel. As you can imagine, with his high profile as a supervillain, he's often come into conflict with other superheroes, including Batman, and of course, the entire Justice League team. It's interesting to note that despite having no natural superpowers, Lex is a genius with a knack for business and politics, and has a deep understanding of science and technology. This combined with the tech that he's developed makes him a massive threat to the heroes of the DC universe. Number 4. Anti-Monitor. The Justice League has many powerful villains, but the Anti-Monitor is one of the most terrifying. His control of the antimatter universe and the ability to threaten the multiverse make him an unstoppable force. During Crisis on Infinite Earths, the Anti-Monitor caused massive destruction, and his determination to end everything was truly terrifying. Even after this defeat, the threat remained as Necron actually held his body, taking it and repurposing it to be used as a power source for the Black Central Power Battery. It's clear that the Anti-Monitor as a villainous multiversal threat should not ever be taken lightly. The lasting impact of the Anti-Monitor and his influence on the DC universe will not soon be forgotten, as his influence and interference helped to basically reshape the entirety of the continuity and reality. Number 3. Hecate. While they may have not known it at the time, Hecate was also a very powerful Justice League foe. Here, interactions with the Justice League and her manipulation of them were not even actually recognized by the JLA themselves, but instead were taken note of by Justice League Dark, a somewhat loosely sanctioned magical division of the League that operates out of the Hall of Justice's basement and is led by Wonder Woman. While Hecate in the end would be defeated in the pages of Justice League Dark, this was only possible because Wonder Woman was able to use other, more powerful even villains, if you can imagine that, of the Justice League Dark team to defeat Hecate. Basically like pitting those against one another. Number 2. Starro the Conqueror. Starro can literally conquer entire worlds and has in fact done so before. And on more than one occasion, they have also almost conquered Earth as well. Starro is a giant space starfish who in their first appearance took on the first formation of the Justice League in The Brave and the Bold, issue number 28, where they threatened to, you guessed it, conquer the world! While in the Suicide Squad film, Starro the Conqueror was a cruel nickname given to Starro by the Thinker, who was charged with experimenting on the imprisoned alien. In the comics, it was a name earned by Starro because they had literally conquered so many worlds. Number 1. Darkseid. Jack Kirby, the famed writer, artist, and comic book creator, created Darkseid, who made his first appearance in Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen, issue 134 in 1970. Darkseid is a tyrannical ruler of the planet Apocalypse and is depicted as a new god in his comic book appearances. His ultimate goal is to basically gain control over the anti-life equation and to eliminate all hope and free will in sentient beings, enslaving the multiverse in essence. He is considered one of the most powerful beings in the DC universe and is known as one of Superman's most formidable enemies and the Justice League's arch nemesis. Darkseid was originally known as Prince Euaxus, the son of King Yuga Khan and Queen Hegra of Apocalypse. He seized control of the planet from his older brother Drax by eliminating him when Drax attempted to claim the fabled Omega Force, with Euaxus betraying his brother and of course taking the Omega Force for himself. With this newfound power, Euaxus' skin turned to stone and he took on a new name, Darkseid.